On my birthday, Corin Duan shared a photo with his secretary, their hands adorned with matching couple rings. Work partners by day, life partners by night? I commented. You two make a perfect couple. Corin called me right away, yelling, "What the hell is wrong with you? Can't take a fucking joke?" While the call was still connected, he turned to his sobbing secretary and murmured comforting words to her. If this had happened in the past, I would have rushed over and made a hysterical scene for everyone's amusement. But this time, my heart was completely unruffled, and I remained utterly indifferent. When Corin got home, I was preparing breakfast. Yesterday was my birthday. He promised to come home to be with me, so I made sure to leave work early and cooked a whole table of dishes. But even by the early hours of the morning, he still hadn't come home. If I hadn't seen that photo, I would have been waiting like a fool. When I placed the sandwiches on the table, he demanded, "Where's mine?" I was taken aback. "Haven't you eaten?" I assumed Chris would have made him breakfast, so I didn't prepare his share. He glanced at my plate and sneered, "This trash? I'd rather skip it." Back then, if he said something like that, I would have been heartbroken and desperate to defend myself. "But you don't even like it anyway," I nodded calmly. He stiffened, then flung a paper bag at me. "Got you a lipstick." After every fight, he'd buy me trinkets as peace offerings, knowing I'd never hold resentment for long and would instantly accept any reconciliation he tossed my way. Without looking up, I mumbled a half-hearted thanks. When he didn't get the response he'd expected, he huffed and headed toward the bathroom, sneering, "What is that outfit? You're too old to wear pink. Trying to pass yourself off as someone Chris's age?" My hand stilled. Did he forget Chris and I were the same age? While clearing the table, Corin's phone lit up with a text from a contact saved as "Sweet Chris, Brother Corin, thank you for accompanying me yesterday. I'm feeling much better now. Corin, thanks for being with me yesterday. I'm feeling so much better now." I averted my gaze after a brief glance, but was abruptly yanked away and hurled against the wall, a pained gasp escaping me. Then came his furious roar, "Hannah! Who the hell said you could look through my phone?" Clutching my shoulder with a pale face, I winced. It was probably dislocated. After sending the text, Corin finally noticed my sweat-drenched face. He frowned, "It was just a little bump." "Why so dramatic?" Before I could speak, he snapped impatiently, "Fine, my bad. I'll drop you off at work. Happy now?" With my injury, I couldn't refuse. The moment I entered the car, the new kitten charm on the rearview mirror caught my eye. Corin stiffened. "Chris wanted it there." I replied flatly, "It's fine." He gave an awkward look and said in a defensive tone, "That tacky amulet of yours was why I had to swap it out." I looked at him blankly, "What's the need to explain? If you wanted to change it, just do it." But then it hit me that amulet was something I had trekked 2 hours up the mountain to obtain, yet stubbornly insisted on hanging in the car even as he wrinkled his nose at it. If it had been me back then, I probably would have thrown Chris's stuff away immediately. But now that I no longer cared about Corin, what was the point in fighting with her over him? "Let's go, we're going to be late for work." Corin finally started the car. We had just entered the overpass when I realized we were going the wrong way. "This isn't the route to Star Tower." He'd said impatiently, "Do you mind not distracting me while I'm driving?" I stated calmly, "I work at Sanyong Building now." He snapped, "Why didn't you say so sooner? I told you before. You just didn't listen." As we exited the ramp, his phone suddenly rang with the Pikachu ringtone Chris loved. My cat threw up. "I need to take him to the vet." Corin pulled over and ordered, "You made me take the wrong turn. Just deal with it yourself." With that, he sped away. During the morning rush hour, I couldn't get a taxi. After waiting in the biting cold for over an hour, my hands and feet were completely numb. I ended up taking a sick leave and headed to the hospital's orthopedic department. In the evening, when Corin got home, he looked around the kitchen and asked, "Where's the late-night snack?" He texted me before coming home. "After all the years we've been together, whenever he was late, I'd always prepare some supper and wait up without being asked. I didn't check my phone, I said offhandedly. Corin fell silent briefly before extending a box toward me. You mentioned wanting a necklace a while back, didn't you? Got this for you. I averted my eyes from the TV screen, only for my gaze to fall upon the familiar design. Thanks, I said politely, but I'm not really into wearing necklaces anymore. Earlier that day, Chris had posted a photo of herself wearing the necklace, complaining that the outdated style didn't suit her at all. Corin leaned closer, reached for the necklace, and draped it around my neck. Here, let me help you with that. Try it on. His approaching hand felt as if it still radiated the heat from Chris's neck. I jerked back to block it, and the fragile chain snapped instantly between us. Corin frowned in annoyance. Is it really worth holding a grudge this long just over having to go to work on your own? I'm not upset. Corin sneered, still claiming you're not upset. Hannah, I know you better than anyone. You've always been so damn petty, not like Chris with her graceful generosity. Having grown up attuned to subtle cues and emotionally sensitive since childhood, I was no stranger to Corin's taunts of being petty during our arguments. He serenely observed my hysterical outbursts from the sidelines like they were street performances. But this time, he was disappointed. I just looked away coolly and said, sure. After watching TV a while longer, I got up to gather my things. As I headed for the door, Corin sneered, what's this? Another grand exit? I calmly met his gaze. I need to work overtime. His expression froze unnaturally, but before he could get another word out, I was already pulling the door open. My best friend Betty and I were deep into a murder mystery when Corin started calling. I let every ring go to voicemail as we played well past midnight. Betty gasped in disbelief, you didn't answer a call from your own husband? Everyone knew I loved Corin with all my heart. I used to answer his calls and texts right away, but tonight I simply couldn't be bothered. Instead, I took Betty to a bar. By the time I returned home, dawn was breaking. I headed straight for the guest bathroom to freshen up. Just as I drifted off, I was startled awake by the sudden bang of the door slamming. Finally decided to come home? Ignoring Corin's snide remarks, I rolled over and settled back to sleep. In the past, he acknowledged me only when convenient. When irritated, he'd shut me out completely, leaving me to grovel like a whimpering stray. Corin stood frozen for a moment at my uncharacteristic silence before suddenly striking the door with a loud bang and storming out, slamming it shut behind him. Undisturbed, I slept deeply. When I woke up to an empty house, the solitude felt liberating. I prepared a single-serving lunch at my leisure, ate at my own pace, then headed out to meet the divorce lawyer Betty recommended. Upon arriving at the law firm, I immediately noticed a video posted by Corin's close friend Pablo celebrating his birthday party. Midway through the video, Corin came into view, Chris perched on his lap. The video was abruptly deleted before it could finish playing when Corin suddenly called. Honey, it's not what you think. Chris tripped and fell, so I just steadied her. I'm not misunderstanding, I said in confusion. Please don't be mad. When Pablo's birthday came around, you had work that day, so I just... Angry about what? I asked, even more bewildered. Corin faltered, the line crackling with his hesitation before he finally said, I'll come get you tonight. Let's have dinner out. I was just about to say no when the dial tone buzzed abruptly in my ear. Corin came home to pick me up and took me directly to a Japanese restaurant. As we stepped inside, the lobby manager sidestepped me and addressed Corin following behind with deference, Welcome, Mr. Duan. Mrs. Duan is waiting in Sakura Snow Pavilion. Corin's face shifted. Before he could speak, Chris emerged from the inner room. Her eyes lit up at the sight of him, cooing Corin Gidge as she trotted over with affectionate familiarity. Corin. Then, as if noticing me for the first time, she feigned surprise, Oh, Hannah. You're here too? You've never been here before, have you? Corin here absolutely adores their sea urchin salad. The lobby manager glanced around, took in the tense atmosphere, and excused himself discreetly. I said with a faint smile, what a coincidence. Corin's face tightened. He reached for my hand, but I turned toward the door. "Let's go," I said flatly. "I'm hungry." Throughout the meal, Corin remained distracted, stealing frequent glances in my direction while piling dishes onto my plate and explaining the restaurant's specialties. I murmured noncommittally here and there until I finally let out a sigh. "Let's just focus on the meal." Halfway through the meal, the restaurant owner approached our table to chat, which was how I discovered the place actually belonged to Marco, Corin's friend. Marco began by apologizing to me, explaining that the waiter was inexperienced and had misidentified someone. I understood this was Marco defending Corin, his tight-knit circle of friends covered for him every single time. I gave a small smile. "It's nothing serious, no need to trouble yourself coming all this way just for that." When Marco saw I wasn't crying or making a fuss, he looked taken aback, excusing himself after exchanging a few pleasantries. After dinner, I returned from the bathroom to find Corin holding a drunken Chris in his arms, gazing down at her with tender affection. Last year, I got drunk at a work event, and a colleague called Corin from my phone, but he refused to pick me up. After being dropped off by my coworker, I couldn't get the door code right no matter how I tried, fumbling with the lock in the early winter chill until I ended up sleeping overnight in the building's corridor. Only the next morning did I realize Corin had been inside the whole time. "I didn't open the door on purpose to teach you a lesson. What kind of woman gets drunk out drinking? Have you no shame?" With that thought, I went back to the private room, grabbed my bag, and walked out without looking back. The moment I stepped through the door, Corin's phone call came through. "Hannah, what's your problem? You just walked out without saying a word? Do you have any idea how long I've been waiting?" "I want a divorce, Corin," I said quietly. This was the second time I had brought up divorce, the first being last year's wedding anniversary, when Corin had accompanied Chris to the aquarium instead. Corin took Chris to the aquarium. We had a fierce argument, and he shoved me to the ground, which led to my miscarriage. I had thought to use divorce as a threat, but never expected him to agree so readily. So I crumpled into sobs, choking out pleas for forgiveness through the ragged breaths of my reckless words. But this time, I meant it. Corin froze. A moment later, he suddenly sneered, "You're pulling this shit again? Fine, I'm coming home now. Let us see how long you can keep this up." The moment Corin arrived home half an hour later, I presented him with the divorce papers I had drawn up in advance. Corin jerked his hand back as if burned, letting the divorce papers scatter across the floor. "Humph, almost convincing," he said, studying me intently. "This game loses its charm after the first few times." "This time it's real," I said calmly. He let out a mocking laugh with a sneer. "Hannah, I know you too well. Playing hard to get is a game that takes brains, and do you even have one?" After saying that, he turned around and left without looking back. The following few days passed without him returning home, which left me feeling rather relieved. Until one day, Marco called in a frantic panic, urging me to go to the hospital because Corin was in a car accident. I said calmly, "I'm at work and can't come. If you're short on caregivers, try Chris. Since he doesn't want to see me anyway, he'd probably prefer having Chris there." But when I returned from work, there sat the man who should have been hospitalized unscathed in our living room, his face like thunder. When he saw me return, he washed some fruit and brought them to me. Every day after that, he made breakfast and drove me to and from work, all while scowling. "Seriously, if you hate having meals with me this much, stop torturing yourself. Now I can't even eat either." He froze for a moment, his face darkening as he bit out stiffly, "No need for that." After that, he looked down and refreshed his feed, clearly expecting me to flaunt it online like I used to whenever he showed me the slightest kindness. But I didn't post anything and blocked him from my posts. The divorce papers were laid out on the coffee table, yet Corin acted as though they were completely invisible. I didn't press him. The lawyer had advised that staying composed was crucial during this stage. Over the weekend, Betty and I hosted a welcome gathering for a friend. As we arrived at the floor of the address Betty had provided, a delighted voice called out, "Honey, did you come here for me?" Corin's face lit up when he saw me. He grinned and pulled me into a side hug. They're inside. Let us just say a quick hello and get out of here. Before I could refuse, he ushered me into the private room. As the door swung open, voices spilled out from inside. Pablo and Marco were addressing Chris as little sis-in-law, the affectionate nickname echoing through the room. The last time I heard that nickname was last year, when Pablo told Corin to bring along little sis-in-law to his winery. On the way back, I teased him, the way they call me little sis-in-law makes me sound like a kid. Corin snapped irritably, enough. What's with the age obsession? Are you stupid? Quit playing innocent, it's pathetic. So, they hadn't been calling me at all. Corin glanced at me with a hint of panic, muttering, they're using the wrong terms, those idiots. I'm sorry. I was replying to a message and answered offhandedly, it's just a name. They can call me whatever, I don't care. As he slipped his arm around me and stepped inside, the room fell silent. Pablo scrambled to his feet, breaking the awkward tension. Mrs. Corin, I completely forgot to invite you to my birthday last time. You said I should be the one to handle the arrangements. I offered a polite smile and deflected the conversation briefly, but Corin promptly guided me to my seat. Chris, her initial displeasure gone, cooed mockingly, Hannah dear, Brother Corin said you hate these stuffy gatherings. I believed him at first. She paused dramatically, but now I see it's not dislike, more like you just couldn't be bothered, I used to yearn to be part of Corin's world, but he seldom brought me along to his friends' gatherings, always claiming you don't know them well and your presence would kill the vibe. But the VIP room was hazy with smoke, and the atmosphere was so off-putting that I really didn't want to stay. The crowd started egging Corin and me to drink with linked arms. Chris breezed over with a glass and set it down before me. Just as she intended, I couldn't help but notice the watch and ring adorning her wrist. The designs seemed familiar, they were the same ones Corin owned. Betty texted me, they're here. My eyes lit up as I rose and grabbed Chris's hand under the astonished eyes of the crowd. I forced Chris down onto the seat next to Corin, ignoring his panicked stare. Thrusting a wine glass into each of their hands, I entwined their arms together. Beaming with contentment like a proud elder at their child's wedding, I proclaimed, this arm-in-arm toast binds you to lasting devotion. Build your life together well. Seeing them frozen in place, I hurriedly reassured them, relax, I'm not trying to break you up. I genuinely want true lovers to stay together. The room fell completely silent, all eyes gaping at our trio. I nudged their clasped hands. Proceed with the toast. With that, I slipped briskly out of the private room. Hannah! Hannah! Corin burst out after me, panic-stricken with quivering lips. It's not what you're thinking between Chris and me. I stared at him blankly, like what? He stumbled, blurting out, there's nothing going on between us. You have to believe me. He raised his hand, tore off his watch and threw it to the ground, then wrenched off his ring with such force that his fingers were rubbed raw. I was just messing around with these, none of them mean a thing, look, I've already thrown them all away. He clutched my arm desperately, just as I had once clung to him when I saw him accompanying Chris to her OB/GYN appointment back then. I too had held on as if that could somehow win his heart. He scowled, shoving me away with disgust. Have you no decency in public? He snapped. Now the tables had turned, he was the one desperately begging. I coldly removed his hand. You should keep up appearances in public, President Duan. He watched me retreat in disbelief, but couldn't bring himself to step closer. During the welcome dinner, Corin kept texting me, but I didn't check any of them. When he started calling directly, I muted it and tucked it away in my bag without a second thought. Betty asked hesitantly, are you sure this is wise? I smiled nonchalantly, let us not let someone who doesn't matter ruin our night. As I stepped out of the private room, the man waiting against the wall lit up, Hannah, let me drive you home. I shook my head and walked out. No need. I'm meeting up with some friends after this. Corin hurried after her, his voice pleading, just send me the address, and I'll come get you. Without a word, I turned and left. On the way, I scrolled through the messages he'd sent earlier, over a dozen in total. The first few asked when I'd finish up, suggesting we head home together. Later, he asked if I had any hangover medication on me, then added that he'd bought yogurt and asked if I'd let him bring it over. Finally, he said he was waiting at the door and I'd see him as soon as I stepped out. After leaving the restaurant, Betty said goodbye to us while Maxwell and I had to head back to the orphanage. That night, we both stayed at the orphanage. Corin bombarded me with dozens of messages and over a dozen calls. I only managed to pick up once I finally woke. He asked anxiously yet cautiously, "Hannah, haven't you finished yet?" Just then, a knock came at the door. "Hannah," Maxwell called out, "dinner's ready." Corin fell silent. When he finally spoke, his voice was halting, laced with anguish. "That man from yesterday?" It just dawned on me that he didn't know Maxwell. "Yes." His voice shook, his breathing quickened. "Where are you?" "I'll pick you up." "I'm at Betty's," I lied coldly, my tone offhand. Corin fell silent for a moment before speaking haltingly. "I'm outside Betty's house, and she just stepped out." I clicked my tongue and snapped, "What the hell is wrong with you? Why the hell do I need your permission to go anywhere?" He stammered nervously, yet his voice remained soft. "I am worried about you, Hannah. Please, just tell me where you are. I'll come get you." "At the orphanage." He hesitated and asked for the orphanage's location, but my patience had already run out. I hung up without another word. Somehow he tracked me down. The moment I stepped outside, Corin was already at the front gate, eyeing Maxwell beside me with guarded suspicion. Maxwell shrugged and nonchalantly headed to his own car. Corin held open the passenger door for me. I cast a brief glance inside but then settled into the back seat. On the dashboard in front of the passenger seat sat a black women's lace camisole that had been left behind. Corin's pupils constricted as he frantically tossed it out of the car, stammering, "Chris just borrowed my car to change, okay? Nothing happened between us, Hannah." I shut my eyes and cut him off. "Stop. Hannah, I swear." I opened my eyes and stated calmly, "I'm actually feeling disgusted." He paled instantly as I added with a hint of smugness, "My stomach's queasy from overeating. Let's just go." He stood frozen for a moment, struggling to process my words and gauge their sincerity, before eventually climbing into the driver's seat with visible hesitation. The engine coughed to life under his unsteady hands. After arriving home, I headed straight to the study to work. By the time I emerged, Corin had cooked 2 homemade dishes and a pot of soup. Corin was a better cook than I was. All I ever wanted was for him to make me a birthday meal, but that simple wish remained unfulfilled year after year. Every time I mentioned it, he'd snap impatiently, "You're just an orphan, not some princess who needs to be waited on. Why so damn dramatic? If you want to eat, make it yourself. It's not like you're helpless." But Chris would often showcase the loving bento boxes he prepared on social media. One time, he left a lunchbox on the table, and believing it was meant for me, I grabbed it. That night, when I returned home, he scooped a messy handful of the bento I couldn't bear to finish with his bare hands and forcefully shoved it into my mouth. "Starving for my food, are you? Here you go, just like feeding some stray. Shoveling it in like there's no tomorrow. Why don't you just drop dead already?" Just before he returned home, I stumbled upon Chris's post on Moments. Someone special put so much love into making this bento, only to have it stolen by some petty thief. Heartbroken. That's when I realized that bento was meant for Chris. Because of me, his precious Chris was upset. Now he was making me pay for it. That time, my face and hair were smeared with scraps and grease, sobbing as I frantically scrubbed at my face. Corin's eyes lit up hopefully as he said softly, "Hannah, I've made your favorite sweet and sour ribs and seafood soup." I approached the dining table where he was already waiting with an overly eager offer of chopsticks. I picked up a spare rib and flung it onto the floor. "What's this? Feeding a beggar now?" I sneered. "You eat it yourself." He stared at me blankly, as if he didn't comprehend what I was doing. I poured the steaming soup over his head. What the hell is this? It reeks. The scalding soup left his face flushed a painful crimson, yet he remained utterly silent. As soon as my takeout arrived, I took it straight into the study to eat, leaving Corin to deal with the aftermath. A moment later, he approached and knocked. "Hannah," he stammered. Before he could finish, a Pikachu ringtone cut him off mid-sentence. Chris was sobbing on the other end, mumbling something incoherent. After hanging up, Corin spoke hurriedly toward the door. "Wait for me at home, okay?" "Chris," she's stuck with a difficult client. "It's urgent company business, I have to go. I'll deal with the mess when I'm back." "I'll grab your favorite cheesecake too," Corin said hurriedly before I could respond. I gave a half-hearted acknowledgement, already tuning into Betty's voice through my headphones. After an endless wait with no further response from me, Corin finally rushed off, the door slamming shut behind him. After finalizing the travel plans with Betty, I grabbed my already packed luggage and rushed straight to the airport. On the way, I texted Corin, "The divorce papers are on the coffee table. Sign them quickly." After a nearly 10-hour flight, as soon as I stepped off the plane, several messages appeared on my phone. One from a colleague: "Your husband showed up at the office looking for you. Did you not inform him you were on leave?" Another text from Maxwell: "Corin showed up at my place, but I wasn't around. He must have gotten the wrong idea." Right after I finished reading the messages, the orphanage called and informed me that Corin had turned the whole place upside down searching for me the day before. Scrolling through my call log revealed more than 20 missed calls from Corin. Instead of calling back, I got a local SIM card and spent the entire month enjoying myself to the fullest. Here, I am simply myself, surrounded by companions and stunning landscapes. No more sleepless nights worrying about his whereabouts, no heart shattered by his harsh remarks, and no need to abandon who I was just to keep him happy. I experienced an unprecedented sense of ease and happiness. A month later, when I returned home, the unsigned divorce papers remained exactly where I had left them on the coffee table. After packing my luggage, I removed Corin's fingerprint access from the door lock and reset the passcode. Even before my return, my application for further studies had been approved, and I was scheduled to leave for the UK in 3 months. Betty and Maxwell had booked a restaurant to celebrate. But the moment I pulled into the restaurant parking lot, I ran into Corin and Chris. They were here for dinner too. After returning home, I checked Corin's social media activity over the past month and found that after failing to locate me, his feed had been flooded with posts. Today he shared a photo of the tie I bought him, saying it can keep a man's heart loyal. Tomorrow, he posted photos from our dating days with nostalgic captions about the promises we made. The next day, he shared photos of his homemade dishes, claiming his wife adored his culinary skills. Anyone unaware might easily mistake him for the ideal husband he's pretending to be. His face hardened when he spotted me, storming over with long strides. I evaded his grasping hand in one swift motion. I positioned myself behind Maxwell's back. Before Corin could utter a word, Chris erupted in a shrill outburst, her face flushed crimson with barely contained rage. "Hannah, you shameless floozy! You're still married and already running around with other men, parading your boy toy in public." Corin was already glaring at us when Chris's outburst sent him into a rage, prompting him to throw a punch at Maxwell. "How dare you mess with my wife, you bastard! How dare you touch him!" I hurled my bag at Corin. The impact landed a heavy blow on his face. He staggered back, clutching his cheek as he stared back at me in stunned disbelief. "Get lost," I said coldly. Corin's eyes reddened instantly, his face twisted in a mix of hurt and betrayal. "Darling," he choked out, "you'd strike me over another man?" I sneered, "Damn right. Got a problem with that?" He stood frozen, staring vacantly as if struggling to reconcile how the woman who once cherished him more than herself could now publicly humiliate him over another man. Chris slipped her arm through Corin's, throwing me a triumphant glance before cooing in a saccharine tone, "Darling Corin, let's leave. Since she doesn't value you, I'll wah." Corin shoved her away with a violent wrench, yet his gaze stayed locked on me. Honey, I know I was wrong before. Please forgive me, come back home with me, please? I'll cook for you every single day. Whatever you want, I'll get it for you, anything your heart desires. I couldn't help but let out a derisive laugh. Had this happened before, seeing him plead so desperately would have shattered my heart, and I would have rushed to forgive him right then. But now, where does he get the confidence? Does he really believe a mere flick of his finger would make me come crawling back like an obedient puppy? Corin, if you'd rather avoid litigation, sign the divorce papers immediately. I assume even you wouldn't want such trivial issues tarnishing your precious reputation. With that, I steered Maxwell and Betty into the restaurant. Corin approached with a stormy expression, Chris trotting behind but not daring to take his arm again. They settled into the private dining room adjacent to ours, but the dividers did little to block noise. Just as Betty raised her glass to toast my upcoming completion of the training program, the sound of shattering glass erupted from the adjacent booth. Before I could speak, Corin snarled, "Get off! Don't touch me!" The waiter entered to inquire but received no response. Then came the scuffling footsteps fading into the distance. Within 10 minutes, the neighboring booth went dead silent. That night, Corin couldn't get in. He pounded desperately on the door and screamed with complete abandon. After calling security and alerting the police, the commotion outside finally subsided. However, since he never sent me the signed divorce papers, I retained legal counsel and initiated divorce proceedings. 3 months later, I departed for the UK to participate in an advanced training program at the corporate headquarters. A week later, there stood Corin at the entrance of my apartment building, his travel-worn appearance stark against the drizzling rain. It was drizzling, but he didn't use an umbrella. He stood there, letting the rain drench his hair and clothes. Some colleagues took pity and asked what they should do. I replied coolly, "Don't get involved. Whoever does so will have to deal with the consequences themselves, and don't involve me." Thus, over the following week, the entire building's occupants bore witness to Corin standing in the downpour day and night, until he finally collapsed to the ground with fever-flushed cheeks. The team leader could no longer stand by and eventually had him taken to the hospital. As the supervisor was about to pay for the medical bill, I immediately stopped him and called Corin's parents instead. The elite couple soon arrived in the UK. The moment they saw me, their faces twisted in disdain. They never liked me. If Corin hadn't been dead set on marrying me, how could someone like me, a nobody with no connections and average abilities, have ever ended up in a wealthy family like this? Corin and I never had a wedding. Except for a few of his friends and close relatives, no one even knew we were married. I did voice my objections, but Corin pulled me into his arms and reassured me, "My parents aren't ready to accept our marriage yet. Holding a wedding now would only anger them and make them think even less of you." I was utterly devoted to him, convinced he was thinking of me in every way. "Then there won't even be a ring?" Corin paused, then soothed me, "Once my parents come around and we have a proper wedding, I'll slip the ring on your finger myself. Wouldn't that be more meaningful? I do feel like I'm not doing you justice if I just grabbed any ring now." I trusted him wholeheartedly. Yet not until seeing him and Chris put on those matching couple rings did I finally comprehend how foolish I'd been all along. Mrs. Duan approached and grasped my hand. "Hannah, I know these years haven't been easy for you. Now that Corin's truly changed for the better, why don't you give him another chance?" Her eyes were filled with unmistakable contempt and resentment, yet she condescended to appease me all to temporarily placate their precious son's protector and stop me from harming him. With a light chuckle, I feigned compliance. Only then did Mr. and Mrs. Duan return to their hotel, their satisfaction barely concealing condescension. I entered the ward alone. Corin was awake, his gaze fixed on me with desperate hope. "Once you've recovered, go back to your country. Don't be a burden around here." I turned to leave, and a heavy thud sounded behind me as Corin tumbled off the bed. "Hannah!" His eyes were bloodshot, face ashen, voice raw with desperation. "I've truly realized my mistakes. Please, can you find it in your heart to forgive me? I've deleted her number and I've even let her go. Please, can you just—" "I don't need to hear this," I cut him off icily. I had known about this all along. On my third day in the UK, Betty sent me a video where Chris publicly accused Corin of leveraging his position to harass her, including supporting footage. The Duan family filed a lawsuit against Chris for defamation and extortion, backed by concrete evidence, resulting in her detention. This man and woman were a disgusting perfect match. I stared at him with icy detachment, my stomach twisting in disgust. Corin, even without Chris, you alone are enough to disgust me. With great effort, he pulled himself up and leaned against the headboard of the hospital bed, his voice trembling as he pleaded, "Hannah, I know you believe I loved Chris, but the truth is, I never did. Alright, if you want to believe me, I'll prove it. Right here, right now." He grabbed a fruit knife from the bedside table and stabbed it into his chest, crimson blooming across his shirt in an instant. "Hannah, I'm ripping out my heart, to prove it to you." His already ashen face turned deathly pale, sweat dripping like pebbles from his cheeks and dropping to the floor. He gasped breathlessly, then painfully crawled toward me on his knees and grabbed my ankle. "Hannah, have a little pity on me, don't you still love me? Hannah. See. I've proven it." I watched him coldly for a long moment. "Corin, you should have been an actor. You've even convinced yourself with that pathetic act, haven't you?" As his blood pooled rapidly, I urgently yelled for help. Amidst the commotion, Mr. and Mrs. Duan hurried back. However, they had no time to confront me, solely focused on anxiously awaiting their son's condition. Corin was finally resuscitated. Weakly, he said to Mr. and Mrs. Duan, "If you dare to bully Hannah, I'll do it again." I simply found the situation absurd and turned to leave the hospital without a backward glance. Mrs. Duan called me several times, urging me to check on Corin at the hospital, but I turned her down each time without hesitation. A few days later, Corin showed up outside my building, still clad in his hospital gown. When he spotted me returning, he staggered forward with unsteady steps. "Hannah," he rasped, his voice trembling with exertion. I stared straight ahead, pretending he wasn't there. He followed me into the elevator, only to be left standing outside as the doors shut behind me. The next day, he appeared again. I called Corin's mother, and within minutes, she rushed to my place to take him back. After 6 months of training, I returned home and was promoted to department manager. Betty and Maxwell had a big cake waiting at my place to celebrate with me. I had just finished cutting the cake when the doorbell rang. "That must be the delivery," I said. I opened the door to find Corin standing there. He had grown noticeably thinner since I last saw him, and upon seeing me, he managed a faint smile. "Hannah, I heard about your promotion and wanted to congratulate you." Maxwell came over and slipped an arm around my shoulders. "Who is this?" Corin paled, as though suddenly rendered speechless. After a long silence, he rasped out, "May I come in and join the celebration?" Maxwell casually stepped aside. "Of course, Mr. Duan. Come in." Corin shuffled unsteadily, removed his shoes, but couldn't he find his house slippers in their usual spot? Maxwell handed him a pair of disposable slippers. "Sorry, there aren't any guest slippers left." Corin didn't stay for long and soon left dejectedly. Shortly after he left, my phone rang. "Hannah, I know there's nothing between you and Maxwell. You're just upset with me." His voice broke into weak coughing. But the line went dead abruptly. Puzzled, I stared at the screen before dismissing it from my mind. After another 30 minutes, the phone rang again. "Hello, this is City 3rd Hospital. Are you Mr. Corin's next of kin? He was involved in a car accident and is undergoing emergency resuscitation. Please get here immediately." The chaotic noises from the emergency department brought back memories of last year when Corin threw me to the ground and rushed off to accompany Chris at the aquarium. After he left, excruciating pain tore through my abdomen. The floor was smeared with blood. As I waited desperately for the ambulance, I called him, pleading through sobs for him to return. "But what's the point of me coming back?" he snapped impatiently. "I'm not a doctor. Stop being so dramatic." You're always crying, just leave me alone. When I tried calling again, the line indicated his phone had been powered off. After the surgery, I saw that Chris had posted a photo of Corin and her standing before the jellyfish exhibit, their cheeks pressed together affectionately. As I was lost in these memories, the doctor's voice came through again, urging a response. I replied with a calm smile, there must be some mistake. I don't know anyone by that name. The long drawn-out 10-month divorce proceedings were finally over. Corin sat in a wheelchair, both legs amputated, gazing at me tenderly as though I were a precious treasure. But I was completely engrossed in a jubilant embrace with Betty, cheering in triumph. Not only was I finally free from Corin, but I was also awarded a considerable fortune through the divorce settlement. 5 years later, having been promoted to a senior executive position at the group headquarters, I was on a trip abroad. Betty called and said over the phone, "Hannah, Corin killed himself this morning." I opened the news app and saw the obituary notice from the Duan group. Passed away after a prolonged battle with depression and a debilitating illness. On social media, a viral video showed Chris fresh out of prison, live streaming while gleefully gloating. That bastard's finally dead. Rot in hell. Ha 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 ha. Her laughter abruptly ceased mid-live stream when a vehicle hurled her into the air, her phone clattering to the pavement. Turning off my phone, I gazed at the Skogafoss waterfall before me, a profound serenity settling in my heart. They have nothing to do with me anymore.